Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's good to be here.
So, today is, well, it's a bit of a departure for us, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Usually, when we sit down at these microphones, we have a specific, tangible artifact in front of us. We have a copy of the Republic or
Leviathan, something you can hold.
Exactly. Or maybe a dense stack of papers on game theory. We're usually, dissecting a specific thinker's view on the world.
Right. We usually act as the bridge between, say, a historical genius and you, the modern listener.
A bridge. I like that. But today we're doing something recursive.
We're looking in the mirror.
We are absolutely looking in the mirror. We've been handed this text, let's call it a treatise on discourse, that essentially serves as the operating system for this very show.
It really does.
It's a meta-text. It's a rigorous, demanding, and frankly, a somewhat intimidating instructional manual on how to think, how to argue,
and how to discuss high-level philosophy without boring everyone to tears.
This is a real challenge.
It's the constitution of our format, if you will. And what's so fascinating about it is that while it reads like a manual, it's actually a manifesto.
A manifesto, yes.
It's a treatise on treatises.
Yeah.
It argues that there's a right way and a wrong way to handle dangerous ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And the right way it proposes is incredibly specific.
Specific is a very polite way of putting it. I was going to go with militant.
Well, it certainly has a backbone. There's no doubt about that.
So here's the mission for today. We are going to treat this instructional text as if it were a classic philosophical work itself.
We're going to turn the microscope back on the microscope.
We're going to subject it to its own rules. We'll analyze its intellectual framework, its method of inquiry, its demands for context, and, its legacy.
And here's the fun part. We're going to do it without explicitly citing the author or the document title every 5 seconds.
Because that's one of the first rules.
Paradoxically, yes. It demands what it calls a talk radio aesthetic, where information flows purely on its own merit, not on citation.
Which is going to be a fun challenge for two people who, let's be honest, love a good footnote.
We do love footnotes.
But okay, let's dive right in. Let's start with the intellectual framework. The text opens with, a barrier to entry.
It really does. It doesn't exactly welcome everyone with open arms.
Not at all. It explicitly states that the target audience and the target level of conversation requires an IQ benchmark of normal plus 3 standard deviations.
Which is, just to be clear, a statistical way of saying this is rarefied air.
It's the top 0.1%, roughly.
Yeah.
Now, when I first read that, I have to admit, I bristled a little bit. It sounds elitist.
It does.
It sounds like a no girls allowed sign on a treehouse, but for brains.
And I think if you read it uncharitably, yes, it absolutely sounds like snobbery.
Yeah.
But if you look at the architectural reason for that benchmark,
The why behind it.
the why, it's about bandwidth. Think of a conversation as data transfer. Most daily conversation happens at what, a 3G speed?
Sure.
It's functional, it gets the job done, but it's lossy. You have to buffer, you have to repeat things, you have to use really simple packets of data.
How about this weather? Or did you see the game last night?
Exactly. This text is demanding a fiber optic connection. It's saying, look, we're going to transmit massive, complex files concepts like metaphysics, deontological ethics, epistemological crises, and we're going to do it at high speed.
Right.
And if the receiver on the other end isn't running at that +3 standard deviation processing speed, the data is just going to get corrupted. It won't land.
So it's not necessarily about the worth of the person, but the compatibility of the signal.
Precisely. It assumes the audience is educated and curious. It assumes we don't need to stop the car to explain what a tire is.
We can just talk about the driving dynamic. We can just talk about the drive. Yes.
This leads perfectly into the persona that the text demands. If we're operating at this high bandwidth, what do we sound like? Because the text explicitly warns against sounding like a professor.
Oh, it hates the academic drone. It despises it. We all know the type.
Monotone. Reading from a script. Obsessed with citation, but completely devoid of life.
Right. And the text calls for a persona that is, and I'm quoting here, intelligent and witty, capable of playful banter, but, and this is the crucial pivot, must treat serious topics with poise and solemnity.
That's the tightrope.
It is. And it uses this one specific analogy that I just love. It says you have to sound like an experienced philosopher at a dinner party.
That is the North Star of this entire framework, that one line.
I think we should really paint this picture. Imagine you're at a dinner party. It's not a rowdy frat kegger, but it's not a funeral either.
Good food. Wine's been open.
The wine is open, exactly. You're sitting across from someone, you aren't lecturing them, you are not standing at a podium, you're leaning in.
And because you're at a dinner party, you have certain social obligations. You have to be entertaining. You cannot bore the other guests.
You'll get kicked out.
But because you're a philosopher at the dinner party, you can't just gossip. You have to bring substance to the table.
It really is a high wire act. You have to be deep enough to matter, but light enough to keep the party going.
That's it. The text argues that tone is actually a delivery mechanism for truth. If you're too solemn, you're heavy. People tune out. If you're too witty, you're frivolous.
People don't trust you.
They don't take you seriously. The synthesis, the dinner party philosopher, uses wit as a hook to drag the listener into the deep water.
You know, I've noticed this in my own life. The smartest people I know are almost always the funniest.
There's a real cognitive correlation there. Wit requires the ability to see two, completely unrelated things and connect them instantly.
That's synthesis.
It is. It's high-level processing. So the text argues that humor isn't a distraction from the philosophy. It's proof that you've mastered the philosophy well enough to play with it.
Oh, that's good. If you can't joke about a concept, you probably don't truly understand it.
That's the rule. If you're terrified of getting the definition wrong, you're stiff. If you own the definition, you can dance with it.
Now, part of this dinner party etiquette involves how we treat the audience's time. And the text is, again, militant about no repetition.
Get straight to the point.
This kills me because I was raised on that old public speaking rule. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them.
And that rule is designed for passive listeners. It's designed for a lecture hall where 30% of the students are, half asleep.
Or on their phones.
This text assumes active engagement. It assumes the listener's leaning forward. If you tell a joke at a dinner party, and then you explain the joke, and then you summarize why the joke was funny,
you're never getting invited back to that house again.
Never. Repetition is an insult to the intelligence of a +3 standard deviation audience.
Mm-hmm.
It implies they didn't get it the first time.
It wants efficiency.
Density.
It wants density.
And it also talks about this balance between general knowledge and technical terminology.
Yeah.
We touched on this, but it's a really tricky balance to strike. It is. The text says, don't explain the basics. Don't define history. Don't define science. But if you use a specific mechanical term,
like the Hegelian dialectic,
or marginal utility or something, you must unpack it.
Because even very smart people can't know everything about everything.
Right. The dinner party guest is educated, but they might be a physicist, not a philosopher. Or they might be a historian, not an economist. You have to treat them as a peer in intelligence, but you act as a guide for the specific terrain you are walking on.
Okay, let's move to part 2, the method of inquiry. So we've established who is talking. Now let's get into how they're supposed to analyze a text. The document lays down a rule that I think completely upends how most of us were taught to do book reports in school.
The anti-linear imperative.
Do not summarize the text linearly, just flat out.
This is maybe the most profound methodological shift in the whole text. Most people, when you ask them to explain a book, they start at page 1. First, the author says this. Then in chapter 2, he says this.
And the text says that is what garbage?
It says it's passive. A linear summary is just a mirror. It reflects the book, but it doesn't explain it. The text demands synthesis. It wants you to shatter the book and reassemble it.
It's like the difference between describing a car by listing every part from the front bumper to the rear bumper,
right? Yeah.
Versus actually explaining the concept of internal combustion.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
If I list the parts linearly, I'm talking about the headlights, then the radiator, then the fan belt, I haven't explained how the car moves.
Not at all.
Synthesis means I group the parts by their function. I talk about the engine as a system. Then I talk about the transmission. Then I talk about the safety systems. I might pull apart from the back of the car and talk about it alongside apart from the front because they work together.
So we are required to identify the through lines.
We have to become architects. The text calls this logical architecture. We aren't just tourists walking through the building. We're inspectors looking at the actual blueprints.
We need to find the load-bearing walls. So when we say logical architecture, what are we actually looking for? What does that mean in practice?
It means we're looking for the structure of the argument. Every philosophical work has a structure. It has premises. That's the foundation. It has inferences. Those are the beams that connect the foundation to the roof. And it has a conclusion, the roof itself.
And sometimes the builder cuts corners.
That's exactly it. The text demands we pinpoint where reasoning is tight versus where it relies on assumptions.
Can you give us a concrete example of that, just to make it real?
Sure. Let's take a classic argument, maybe something from social contract theory. The author argues, because humans are naturally violent, we need a strong king to keep the peace.
Okay. A linear summary would just say, he says we need a king because we're violent.
Right. But an architectural analysis asks, wait a minute, let's look at that foundation. The premise is humans are naturally violent. Is that true? Is that a rock-solid foundation, or is that just the author's unstated assumption?
If the foundation cracks.
The roof, we need a king, collapses. The text wants us to stress test that concrete foundation.
But we're looking for the missing C. The author goes from A to B, and then suddenly they jump to D. And our job is to find out what happened to C.
And often, C is where the bias lives. C is where the author hides their assumptions, their hopes, their fears. Our job is to drag C out into the sunlight.
The text also puts a huge emphasis on finding key innovations. It asks, what didn't exist before this work?
This is the historical comparative element.
Yeah.
You can't understand the magnitude of an idea if you don't know the status quo it absolutely destroyed.
It's like trying to explain why the Beatles were a big deal to a kid who has Spotify.
Right. To the kid, it's just old pop music.
Yeah.
But if you can explain what music sounded like in 1962, if you explain the vacuum, then the Beatles suddenly become this massive explosion.
And the text wants us to identify the explosion.
Identify the explosion, yes.
It even asks us to look at vocabulary. Did the author invent new words?
Philosophers are notorious for this, right? They invent words like desane or hauntology or superego.
And usually I just find that annoying. It feels pretentious.
It can be. But the text argues that usually a new word is a signal that a new tool was needed. The author found a problem that the existing language, English or German or Greek, couldn't solve. The existing tools were too blunt.
So they forged a new scalpel.
They forged a new scalpel, and we have to explain why that scalpel was necessary for the operation.
That segues perfectly into part 3, contextualization and critical engagement. The text has a very, very specific warning here. It says we need context, but we must not fall into the trap of autobiography.
This is the psychology of the philosopher trap, and it is so tempting.
Oh, it's the easiest thing in the world.
We read Rousseau and we say, oh, he wrote this big book about raising children, but he abandoned his own kids, so he's just a hypocrite working out his guilt.
It's a great piece of gossip.
It is. But it's bad philosophy. It's the genetic fallacy. You're attacking the origin of the idea, the man, rather than the structure of the idea, the logic. The text says, note the biography. It's absolutely relevant that Rousseau abandoned his kids. But does his argument for education hold up logically on its own terms? The walls of the fortress might be strong, even if the architect who built it was a drunk.
So we separate the art from the artist, but we keep the artist in the room.
We keep the artist in the room to understand the provocation.
Provocation, that's a key word in this text.
It is. Philosophy is almost always a counterpunch. It's reactionary. You don't write a 500-page treatise because you're happy with the world.
You write it because you're angry.
You write it because you're angry. You write it because someone else is wrong and you feel compelled to fix it.
So when we analyze a text, we need to find the enemy.
We need to find the fight. Who is the author yelling at? Is Locke yelling at Hobbes? Is Marx yelling at Hegel? If you don't know who the target is, you don't understand the weapon.
It grounds these abstract ideas in a real human struggle.
Exactly. And speaking of struggle, the text has a very strict mandate on how we handle objections.
Every great philosophical text has been criticized by serious thinkers. That's the line that stood out to me.
It's a reminder that there are no sacred cows here. If you present an idea as flawless, you aren't doing analysis. You're doing PR.
You're doing propaganda.
You are.
So we have to present the strongest objections fairly.
Fairly. And that is the hard part.
It's the whole steel man concept, isn't it?
It is. Versus the straw man. We all know the straw man. You paint your opponent as an idiot. He hates freedom. He wants to destroy the economy. It's so easy to knock down.
And it feels good, too.
It feels great to be right. But the text demands the steel man. You have to build the critic's argument out of steel. You have to make it as strong, as rational, and as convincing as you possibly can.
You have to make the listener think, wait a minute, maybe the critic is right.
And only then, once you've built that fortress for your opponent, do you let the original author respond?
That is true intellectual poise.
It is. If you're confident in your logical architecture, you aren't afraid of the battering ram. You invite the battering ram. You let it hit the wall. If the wall holds, you've proven something. If you have to hide the wall from the battering ram, you know it's made of paper.
This connects right back to that dinner party persona. A confident host doesn't kick someone out for asking a tough question.
They answer it.
They answer it.
They answer with a smile. And that is the height of discourse.
The text also insists on connecting these high-flying ideas back down to reality. We need familiar real-world examples.
We need to touch grass.
The text effectively says, go touch grass.
It does. It says abstraction is completely useless if it doesn't map onto concrete lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about utilitarianism, don't just talk about philosophic calculus.
Yeah.
Talk about triaging patients in an emergency room. Talk about a government deciding where to build a new bridge.
Talk about the trolley problem, but make it real.
Make it real. Because if you, the listener, can't see the idea in your own life, then the transmission has failed. The data is lost.
Okay, let's move to part 4, the legacy of ideas. So after we've broken it down, we have to build it back up and see where it went. The text asks us to trace the influence forward.
This is the genealogy of ideas. Ideas reproduce, they have children.
And sometimes the children hate the parents.
Oh, often. The text asks us to look for critics, defenders, or inheritors. I love that concept of the inheritor.
Tell me more about that.
Well, sometimes a philosopher is completely wrong about their answer, but they're genius because of their question.
Can you give an example?
Descartes is the classic example. His answer, I think, therefore I am, is debatable. His physics, mostly wrong. But his question, how can I be certain of anything?
That broke the world. Everyone who came after him inherited that question.
They couldn't escape it.
They couldn't. He set the board game that everyone else was forced to play.
So when we look at legacy, we aren't just looking for fans of the work. We're looking for people who are trapped in the author's gravity.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We are mapping the gravitational field of an idea.
And that leads to the question of modern relevance. The text asks a really brutal question. Is this text studied for historical reasons, or does it contain arguments that remain live and unresolved?
The live versus dead test.
So give me an example of a dead argument, something that's a museum piece.
The debate over phlogiston. Chemists used to argue about this substance called phlogiston that was supposedly released during combustion.
Right.
It doesn't exist. We discovered oxygen. That debate is dead.
Yeah.
It's interesting for historical reasons, but no serious chemist is arguing about it.
And a live argument.
What is the best form of government? That is very, very much alive. Plato's arguments in the Republic about the dangers of democracy are still terrifyingly relevant today. We haven't solved it. The wire is still hot.
If you touch it, you get shocked.
You do.
Now, the text also warns us about popular culture. It demands a correction.
Distinguish between what the author actually argued and what popular culture claims.
This is the bumper sticker problem, isn't it?
It is. Ideas degrade as they move through the general population. They lose nuance. They lose context. They become slogans.
And we see this everywhere. You see it with Machiavelli.
Machiavelli is the absolute poster child for this. Pop culture says Machiavelli means be evil to get what you want. Just be ruthless.
The end justifies the means.
But the actual text of The Prince is this desperate, almost heartbroken attempt to analyze how to stabilize a state so that people stop getting slaughtered in the streets. It's about the burden of power, not the joy of it.
Or what about Orwell, Big Brother?
Right. Everyone uses the word Orwellian to mean a government doing something I don't like. But Orwell was a socialist. He was critiquing a very specific kind of totalitarian mind control, the literal destruction of objective truth.
So the text demands that we be the janitors of history. We have to scrub off all the graffiti and show the original stone underneath.
Because if you're arguing against the bumper sticker, you're fighting a ghost. You're not actually engaging with the master.
And finally, under this section, the text demands the so what? It asks for utility.
It asks us to translate. We can take the high voltage of the philosophy and step it down so it can plug into the wall socket of your daily life.
If it doesn't help you vote, or parent your children, or do your job, or love your partner, then why are we talking about it?
Exactly. Philosophy is not a parlor game. It's a survival guide.
All right, we have arrived at the most experimental part of the text, and I have to say it's my personal favorite, the thought experiments.
And the text is very strict here. It says, do not just recap. It demands we infer what is obvious that people are missing.
And it gives us rules for these experiments. Limit it to 1 or 2. They must be outlandish but plausible, and they must genuinely test the author's framework.
Outlandish but plausible. I love that contradiction. It means keep the laws of physics and human nature, but crank the social volume up to 11.
So In the spirit of this meta-text, we have designed 2 thought experiments that apply the rules of this treatise on discourse to the real world. We are going to test the system itself.
Let's run the simulation.
Okay. Scenario 1, the literal interpretation world. We're going to imagine a society, let's call it the Republic of Logica, where the government strictly enforces this text's rule of normal benchmark plus 3 standard deviations logic in all public discourse.
So a logicocracy.
A constitutional logicocracy. Imagine a world where this isn't just a rule for a show like ours, but it's the law of the land. To speak in a town hall, to write a newspaper op-ed, to run a political ad, your argument must meet the formal requirements of valid thought.
Okay, let's play this out. So premises must be identified, logical steps must be traced, all fallacies are illegal.
Imagine a presidential debate in Logica. Candidate A steps up to the podium, he looks at the camera and says, "My opponent hates the working class."
And immediately a buzzer goes off. VZZZT.
The moderator interrupts. Candidate A, you have just committed a straw man fallacy. You have asserted a conclusion without establishing the premise. You have offered no evidence of the internal mental state of your opponent. Your microphone is now muted for 10 minutes.
The silence in that debate hall would be deafening.
Think about advertising. I mean, our entire economy runs on logical fallacies. Appeal to emotion, appeal to popularity. You see a commercial for a truck, right? It shows a cowboy driving through mud, splashing water, looking rugged.
The implied argument being, if you buy this truck, you too will be rugged.
Which is a complete non sequitur. The truck is a machine. You are an accountant. Betting the machine does not alter your fundamental ruggedness.
Not one bit.
In the Republic of Logica, that ad is banned. The car company has to run an ad that says, this truck has a towing capacity of 10,000 pounds. This is 15% higher than the leading competitor. If you frequently need to tow 10,000 pounds, this is a rational purchase. If you do not, you are wasting fuel.
Sales would absolutely collapse. The entire economy is built on the invalid thought of aspiration.
But let's go deeper. Let's take it out of the public square and into the home. Let's look at the dinner party of life. Relationships.
Oh, this is where it gets dark.
It does. Your partner comes home. They had a terrible day at work. They are crying. They say, my boss hates me. Everything is going wrong. The universe is against me.
In our world, the correct human response is a hug. You say, I know, it's unfair. I'm so sorry.
But in the Republic of Logica, you are legally and morally obligated to say, objection, premise 1, the universe is against me. This implies the universe has sentience and intent. This is an unproven assertion. Premise 2, my boss hates me. Do you have a written affidavit of his hatred? Or is it possible you are projecting your own insecurity?
You are sleeping on the couch.
Forever.
You are single.
Yeah.
Immediately single.
This thought experiment really reveals the limits of the text, doesn't it?
It does. It shows that high-level discourse, as defined by this text, is a specific tool for a specific job analyzing truth claims. It is a scalpel. But you don't hug your children with a scalpel, and you don't build a marriage with one. The text demands solemnity and validity. But human connection so often thrives on the invalid. It thrives on shared delusions, on hyperbole, on the beautiful messiness of emotion.
I will love you forever.
That is a statistically improbable statement, but if you don't say it, the relationship dies.
So the treatise on discourse is a fantastic manual for the intellect. But if you let it colonize your heart, you become a monster.
A very smart, very lonely monster.
Okay. Scenario 2, the Contextless Archive. This one is based on the text's mandate to never talk about specific source names or provide direct attribution during the flow of a conversation. Let's imagine a future academia where this is the absolute law.
The death of the author.
Yeah.
But legalized and enforced by the state.
Completely. The Great Library of the Future has millions of books, but they are all in plain white covers. No author names, no publisher bios, no dates of publication.
A total tabula rasa.
You walk in, you pick up a book. You don't know if it was written by Einstein or Plato or a conspiracy theorist in a basement. You don't know if it was written in 2024 or 1024.
This really tests the text's concept of meritocracy. It wants ideas to stand or fall on their own legs. In our world, we suffer so much from authority bias.
Oh, constantly.
We read a book because a smart person wrote it. We nod along with the Nobel Prize winner, even if they're talking complete nonsense outside their field.
In the Contextless Archive, that crutch is kicked away.
On the surface, it sounds like a utopia for pure truth. No celebrity worship, no cancel culture, just the raw code of the idea itself.
But think about the cost. Think about the sheer +3 standard deviation effort that would be required from every single reader.
It would be exhausting.
If I hand you a book on physics and it says time is relative, and you know it was written by Albert Einstein, you give it the benefit of the doubt. You put in the hard work to understand it. But if you don't know who wrote it, you might read that first page, say, this sounds completely crazy, and just throw it in the trash.
We rely on reputation as a heuristic. It's a mental shortcut. This person has been right before, so they are probably worth listening to now. Without that shortcut, we would have to vet every single sentence from absolute scratch.
And what about the genealogy of ideas we talked about earlier? How do you trace the influence of Kant if you don't know who Kant is or which books he wrote?
You lose the story. Philosophy is a multi-generational conversation. It's a family drama, really. If you remove the names, you just have a room full of disembodied shouting voices. You lose the humanity of the struggle.
And what about accountability?
Yeah, that's the most dangerous part. Ideas have consequences. Bad ideas kill people. If an anonymous white book convinces a nation to go to war, who do we put on trial? The book.
You can't put a book in jail.
Authorship is a mechanism of responsibility. It's someone saying, I said this, I stand by this. If you remove that, you create a world of intellectual ghost snipers. People can launch dangerous ideas into the world without ever putting their own skin in the game.
So paradoxically, the text's rule about no attribution, which works great for a dynamic podcast conversation,
In this very specific context,
would be an absolute disaster for civilization if applied universally.
it suggests that the talk radio style is a performance. It's a layer on top of the archive. We need the names and the dates in the library so that we can have the fun, anonymous conversation at the dinner party.
The dinner party relies on the grocery store existing, and the grocery store needs labels on the cans.
That is the synthesis.
Now, as per the source text's very strict requirements, we must include the mandatory disclaimer for these thought experiments.
We must.
These scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please do not try to institute a logicocracy in your local homeowners association.
Though I have to admit, seeing someone at a meeting scream, "Objection, slippery slope fallacy," regarding the acceptable height of offense would be deeply, deeply satisfying.
It would be the best HOA meeting ever, for about 5 minutes.
And then it would be hell.
Pure hell. Agreed. So let's wrap this up. We have unpacked this treatise on high-level discourse. We've looked at the persona, the method, the context, the legacy, and we've stress-tested it with a couple of hypotheticals. What's the final takeaway?
I think the ultimate value of this text, this manual for talk treatises, is that it provides a blueprint for elevating discourse above the noise.
And we are living in the noise age.
We are absolutely drowning in information but starving for wisdom. We're drowning in hot takes and bumper stickers. This text suggests that the only way to survive, to keep your sanity and your intelligence, is to filter.
It's a filter for quality.
It is. It says, stop consuming passively. Start analyzing architecturally. Don't just look at the paint on the walls. Look at the beams. Check the foundation. And don't be afraid to be that dinner party philosopher.
Be witty. Be solemn. Be sharp.
And most importantly, as it says, add to the discussion. Don't just echo. Don't just repeat. Synthesize. Create.
It's a call to action, really. It asks you, the listener, to step up to that +3 standard deviation line, not because you're better than everyone else, but because the ideas themselves deserve that level of respect.
Ideas shape the world. You have to treat them with respect.
As always, the link to the text we analyzed today, this fascinating meta-treatise, is in the bio. We really encourage you to read it. Try to apply the framework in your next conversation. See if you can spot the premises. See if you can steel man an objection.
And maybe try not to get divorced while doing it.
That is the real challenge. Be smart, but be human.
Exactly.
This has been a deep dive special edition of Talk Treatises. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.